What's up, everyone? Blake Sloan here with Mr. Alex Prout. Brand new edition of Agent Success Podcast. And today is probably one of the biggest ones ever done. I debated even sharing this one because it's so serious. It's actually the holy grail of real estate. And it's something we teach to our company. And so you definitely want to pay attention to this. You can always go back and watch any of these on sloantraining.com. But ultimately, this is something we teach to our team all the time. And is huge, and it's called the holy grail of real estate. And ultimately, it comes down to one thing only, and that's lifetime value.
Yes.
And so I think this is where most agents truly miss out, and where I missed out in my business for years and years and years and years, and ultimately where almost everyone that even comes in our team initially tends to miss out. Mm-hmm. And just because everyone tends to stay on the transaction treadmill, right? And talk to them about what we talk about the transaction treadmill is.
So you're prospecting new, and all you're ever getting is one sale here. You work for it like crazy. It costs you time, money, effort that you wouldn't normally have to deal with if you were just to call your old clients and possibly get some referral business who are sold on you.
And we talked about this in the past a little bit, but this is like top secret for me. I've never shared this anywhere publicly to anyone. This came from an outside business consultant I had from Austin, Texas a long time ago. We did, and he was a coach to me. He owned grocery stores. It took him from 4 grocery stores to 40 to 4,000, and they sold it. And so he was very, very wealthy. We understood something that was really the holy grail to unlock it, and it's called lifetime value. And so what that means is, what's the actual lifetime value of a client? And I thought, that's cute and all, until I actually started looking at the numbers. Mm-hmm. And when you look at the numbers and know the numbers, it'll absolutely blow your mind. So really just take time, if you got a piece of paper or something, write this down. I brought one I'm going to show you just so you can see the numbers, but it's absolutely mind-blowing if you look at it. Mm-hmm. And so here's what happens though. Everyone has good intentions to unlock lifetime value. Mm. The problem is that no one can actually do it. And so what happens is, if you look at the numbers, I'll just break it down, from a number standpoint in marketplace. Mm-hmm. And so if you want to, I'll just look at, I guess I can do 2 different ways of average sale price. And so we can do 200,000, let's just say $200,000. So if you do $200,000, right, average sale price, which you can obviously see here, the average commission on that, in most cases, if you just base on it, obviously I would never control commissions. That's negotiable for anyone. But the average we see in our MLS here locally is about $6,000 gross. And so what most people do is the initial transaction. I really want to keep in touch with my people. I really want to work with them again. I want to send them some recipe cards. And ultimately, they have good intention to do so. The problem is, no one ever actually unlocks it like they should, at least in my experience, across the country. Right. And I've spoken and talked to a lot of people across the country, and the reality is there's a disconnect there between the good intention of wanting to and how do you actually unlock that. I'm going to show you how one single person in that price range there can be worth $144,000. Mm-hmm. $144,000, the one client. And so that's when you look at the math. And so if you look at stats, the average person moves every 7 years on average. There's a couple of reports out there, 1-7. I've seen less, seen more, but every 7 years. So if you look at the initial transaction, number 1 is $6,000. Mm-hmm. Year 7, year 14, and year 21. So that leaves 4 transactions there, right? So you got first one, year 7, year 14, year 21, no big deal. That's not a whole lot, but where it comes into play and the ultimate game changer here is when you start to measure the actual referrals, right? And so average person knows 4.3 people a year that move, right? Probably can't read my handwriting great, 4.3 people. Let's say, and that's statistically, that's national stats I've seen. The reality, though, is that we don't want to get all those. We do, but it's not realistic, right? And so what if you could just get one? What if I could just get one of the 4 people that my past client knows who's going to make a move every single year? Mm-hmm. And so now that's an additional 1 transaction. Let's say it's the same average sale price, $6,000. Well, if you look at the average lifetime value of a client for most people is about 20 years. If you're looking at how long I've been in the business, I've already been in business 13 years. And so if you look at a lifetime value about 20 years, that's 20 times the 1 referral, right? Now I got my 4 repeat transactions. First one, 7, 14, 21. Now that's 24 times the value. Y'all with me on this? If you take your calculator, if you got it with you right now, do 6,000 times 24. I'll save the time for you. It's $144,000. That's pretty insane if you start breaking that number down. Now, if you add average sale price up a little bit, the numbers get crazy because I'll show you what the commission on a 250 is about $7,500. And so we'll look at that, but let's say we're very conservative now. Imagine the feeling of waking up every January 1st knowing with a shadow of a doubt you have 100 people send you one referral. That's where the game changer comes in. That's where I think you're looking at about $600,000 a year in gross commissions, $400 an hour roughly, if you break that down into what that's worth. The problem is it's long-term money. That's seed money. So most agents, even agents that work with us that have hundreds of leads, will not call the past clients. And there's a huge discount. Only one more thing, and I'll get Alex thought on this. So why does that not happen? And so if you look at National Association of Realtors study, I have a study here. NAR stats say that 70% of consumers will use the same realtor again. Why is that? Because they're fairly happy with it. You hear a lot of horror stories like we're compared to car salesmen. If you look at the data, it's actually really good. 70% of people would use the same realtor again. Now, if you tie that up together, this is from NAR stats, less than 10% actually do. What do you think the disconnect is?
Gosh, there's going to be a lot of disconnects there. Work ethic, setting the time for it and making it a daily commitment and setting it specifically to do that every day. That would probably be the number one.
I'll show you exactly what I believe it is the connection between year 1 and year 7. There's not a way for most agents to actually bridge that in most cases. They don't have the discipline to follow up, and they don't have two things that you have to have. You have to have two things. And you can't have one. You have to have professional relevance. Meaning, do they feel that you are the absolute best choice for their friends, family, relatives, whoever to actually use? The problem most real estate agents, they don't have a clear value proposition that they can actually articulate to them on why they're better than the competition. I talk about this all the time. Anyone we interview, I always ask, why should I use you versus anyone else if I'm the consumer? No one ever has a real answer. It's always like, I'm number one. I've lived here for 23 years. I want to work harder for you. Nothing that the consumer can actually articulate to their friend. If you want to understand, do I have a real, true value proposition? Here's the litmus test. Can they explain to their best friend what you do? What makes you different? With us, we have an unfair advantage home buying system that does all these specific things. Obviously, I'm not going to share that, but that's what we have, a tangible, literal thing that you can go line by line what we do that makes us different. And so the reality is there's got to be something there that can be happened to, and the problem is they can't truly articulate. The second thing, right, you have to have personal relevance, and that's where we connect the dots at, is you have to have personal relevance, meaning they have to feel like you care. And so if you're on that transaction treadmill and people are just running to the next deal, to the next deal, to the next deal, because we as salespeople, especially like me, I love to hunt, right? I just want to hunt. Let me hunt and go slay some dragons and go get the next dragon. The problem is you don't play the seed game. The farmer game, planting seeds, followed up, nurturing, right? Plowing the fields, aka calling the past clients. So what most people do, they don't call their past clients because you feel guilty. They don't know what to ask them. They don't know what to talk about. And so through us, we have these things called hug fields. And talk to them a little bit about what hug fields are.
So it's any personal information that actually can be something that relates to that individual as a client. It could be something like a sports team. It could be something like, are they drinkers? Do they have a spouse? Like, there's all kinds of hug fields in there. And it's all it is you're putting together little pieces of what makes that person an individual because you care. Right.
And so part of what we do is we have a software that we built. It took a lot of time and energy, but we can segment and know everything about our clients, their favorite sports teams. So we have all the Clemson Tigers. We can segment all the Clemson Tiger fans, mass email them on a personal level if we wanted to and say, hey, how about the Tigers win the national championship? Or, right, just call them their birthday. But the reality is there's also a part of that called the law of reciprocity. And talk about that. You hopefully know that.
Well, if you put something out there, a lot of times folks feel obligated to put it back to you. So the more you are in touch with and connected with and show that you care, they're going to do something that shows that they care as well, which comes in the form of business when it comes to a professionally relevant person.
I'm just filling the cup, right? So what happens is through a law of reciprocity, if I feel like if I call them, check in, at the end, I'm not really asking them for those. Hey, how you doing? How's little Johnny's soccer team doing? How's everything going with that? And so the reality is I'm able to connect with them on a deeper level and actually care. Well, imagine that in today's time, you actually care about the consumer and have the data logged. The problem is, I know when I'm with them, and most people, most agents, what I've noticed in tracking this is 3 months later, you don't remember Johnny's soccer team. You don't remember the details of their favorite restaurant or their birthday. And so what we're able to do is segment on a mass level and mass communicate on a very personal level to allow you to make those calls. And so what happens when you make the call and follow up through the law, and it's not that we do it on purpose, but naturally through that law of reciprocity, what do they feel like?
They feel like they owe you something.
Well, I owe them something. This person actually cares. No one takes time to call me and talk to me and ask me how things are going, right? And those people that don't even see it, the only people that call me on my birthday is like my mom and my stepdad. And so the reality is, like, if you take time to do that, you're filling it up, and ultimately that brings back more referrals. Here's the magic part. If you look at, and I talked about this on previous podcast, I believe, you look at what a referral converts at, that number is 80%. 80% of referrals you get will close because they're pre-sold on you. It's just how the handoff happens. Web leads are 2 to 4% if you're good. And so it can have you have a master business that's built on this if you just take time to do it. Now, you need tools to do it. We have specific times to call. Able to follow up. You have to hit them with other things so like we automate that. We hit them with videos and updates, and if you're on our list, you probably may get some consistently a couple times a month. And then you have the personal relevance to tie that together and provide them value. I can't share the specifics of how we do it, but you got to have both to them. And you got to own their mind for anything real estate related. And the question I want you to ask yourself is, how do I bridge the gap between year 1 and year 7? What is your specific action item or actionable plan that you have to bridge the gap between year 1 and year 7? Most don't have that. And so an example of that would be is like a preferred vendor program. So ultimately, I'm not going to buy a house with every 7 years statistically, but I may need a plumber every year. I may need an electrician every other year. I may need a grass person to cut the grass or a landscaper. And so you got to find a way to own their mind for anything real estate related. What I found the hard way is that happens before the presentation even starts. That happens to them on how you pre-frame yourself, your value proposition, and how you operate from the very, very, very beginning. And so if you take anything away from this podcast, we'll build on this a little deeper. Take away the basic mathematics. And that's one thing that actually have the numbers written down here for at 250. If you look at national numbers, ultimately kind of what that client's worth, right? Initial transaction for $250,000 on average, about $7,500 commission in our marketplace. You add that up overall over time, right? 3 times 7,500 is 22,000 in the repeat transactions. You add 1 referral a year for 20 years, 7,500 times 20 is 150,000. The lifetime value of that client overall at the 250 price range, which some of y'all are above that, right? The city Myrtle Beach median price is way above that. You're at $180,000. And so ultimately, you take that, do the math on that. What if you had 100 people a year send you 1 referral? And here's the thing. A lot of y'all know 200 people in your sphere, but there's not a way to unlock it. And so you got to find the key. How do I unlock the Holy Grail? It has to do with differentiation, mindset, and ability. 100 clients a year, right, is worth $18 million over 20 years at that price. Unbelievable, right? Now, is that realistic for everybody? No, because most don't have the discipline to actually do it. And this is what drives me crazy in how you do that. If you break that down, it's $900,000 per year, $17,307.70 per week, $432 an hour, ultimately. So is it worth $432 an hour to call your past clients? Absolutely. The problem is most don't have the discipline to do that, right? Or the framework to do that. And so ultimately, there's a process and a training system that we have that allows you to go back to your database you already have an apology script. Hey, sorry, I've neglected this in my past clients. I'm really recommitting to be your value-added real estate expert. Here's what I want to be able to do going forward. And you have to be able to have a plan for them to understand and want to be enrolled into your Lifetime Connection program, right? And so and everybody knows referrals are good, but the reality is I found that everyone talked about it, but most people did not know the actual numbers. And if you can get really good clients, we call them champions, who send 1 referral a year and will do multiple transactions, and that's massive money. We're not counting investors, right? You just had an investor client that's done multiple transactions in a year,
Absolutely.
Right? And so what's your take on this and what you've seen for most agents and kind of through this process?
I think it's systems work when people don't. So
Right.
if you don't have a system in place for it, you're probably going to be behind the 8 ball on this. I mean, you can do your best to kind of scrimp and scrape and get what you can out of your past clients, but systematize it. That's probably the best way to go about it.
You have to have the framework for that. And so like what I've figured out here with us and talk about, I can automate 75% of it. I cannot automate the 25% of it, which comes from the agent, which is the actual connection to your client. And so I want to ask yourself, look at your transactions. If you look at every transaction you've ever done and try to find a 1-to-1 ratio, right? 1 referral a year, because they know people. And it's not just delivering service. You have to have a great service. That's all the basic part. But go back to the key numbers here. 70% of people say they would use the same agent again. Less than 10% actually do. There's a gap there that has to be connected, right? That you're able to jump over, that has to be done. And if you have the tools to do that, great. And we want to share value just so you can kind of see that. I'm sure you can think of a few things to do right now. First thing we'll do is just call them. We have a thing, call one past client a day. That's it, right? What if I just call one past client a day and just connect it with them? That's it. And just say, you don't really have to say referrals. Just remind them that you're in real estate, that you're here to help serve them for anything else that you need.
Right.
This is some basic level stuff, but I wanted to talk to you about high level numbers here that we teach on that we're able to go through in depth if you actually know the numbers. And the Holy Grail is actually knowing that, because here's the thing. Once you know the numbers, believe them and buy into them, you're going to be willing to actually do the work.
That's right.
Most people understand that there's referral opportunities out there, but they're hunting the new stuff. They forget to actually follow up with the ones that convert the most. So I can make 100 phone calls to online leads that convert at 1 to 2%, sometimes 4%. Or I can make the calls to the right people. And the other part, you got to segment your database. You got to know who the ones sending you referrals and who's not. If you don't have a tool in place, aka a CRM that'll do that, to segment, you're kind of in trouble there, right? And so part of what we have a daily 12 core steps that we do. Part of that is organizing and prioritizing your database. Who are my people that are my champions? Who's an advocate for me, right? Who's an A buyer, B buyer, C buyer, same thing with sellers. But you got to be able to know where to spend your time and be able to do that. Any last thoughts on what you've seen experience-wise?
No, I think that pretty much covers it.
So anything you have question-wise, definitely reach out. I'm here to help serve. I hope this serves you. Share this with somebody you think may be interested in it, in the business. We'll continue to provide value. We'll build the next episode. As usual, you can get a free consultation, free one-on-one coaching session if you want. Just go to sloantraining.com. We're here to help anyway. We'll see you in the next video.